Swati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Yamuna Mai ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktavrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Tamini. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 9, Text 29. Eleven 9:29. Okay, word for word. Labdva sudurlabham idam bahu sambhava ante manusham artadam anityam api iha tiraha turnam yateta na patet anumrityu yavat nishrayasaya vishayaha kalu sarvataha syat labdva sudurlabhamidam bahu sambhavante manushyam anityamapi hadiraha turnam yatita napated anumrityu yavan nishrayasaya vishaya kalu sarvatasyat labdva sudurlabhamidam bahu sambhavante manushyam artadam anityamapi hadiraha turnam yatita napated anumrityu yavan nishrayasaya vishaya kalu sarvatasyat labdva sudurlabhamidam bahu sambhavante manusham artadam anityamapi hadiraha turnam yatita napated anumrityu yavan nishrayasaya vishaya kalu sarvatasyat. Please repeat. Labdva sudurlabhamidam bahu sambhavante shamartadam anityamapi turnam yatita napated anumrityu yavan nishrayasaya vishaya kalu sarvatasyat.
Sudurlabhamidam bahu sambhavante
Sudurlabhamidam bahu sambhavante
manushamartadamanityamapi hatiraha
manushyamartadam anityamapi
turnam yateta napated anumrityu yavan
turnam yatita napated anumrityu yavan
nishreyasaya vishaya kalu sarvatasyat
labdva sudurlabhamidam bahu sambhavante
मानुष्यमर्थदमनित्यमपीह धीरः तूर्णं नपते तूर्णं यतेत नपते तन्मृत्युयावन् निःश्रेयसाय विषयः खलु सर्वतः स्यात्
लब्ध्वा सुदुर्लभमिदं बहुसम्भवान्ते
लब्ध्वा सुदुर्लभमिदं बहुसम्भवान्ते
मानुष्यम् अर्थदं अनित्यम् अपि यधीरः
Anityamapi hadiraha.
Turnam yateta napateranamrityavan
Nishrayasaya vishaya kalasarvatasyat. Mataris. Labdva sudalapamidam bahu sambhavante. Madhushamanitadamanityamapi hadiraha. Turnam yateta napateranamrityavan Nishayasaya vishaya kalasarvatasyat. Labdva, having obtained. Sudurlabham, that which is very difficult to obtain. Idam, this. Bahu, many. Sambhava, births. Ante, after. Manusham, human form of life. Artadam, which awards great value. Anityam, not eternal. Api, although. Iha, in this material world. Dhiraha, one who has sober intelligence. Turnam, immediately. Yateta, should endeavor. Na, not. Patet, has fallen. Anumrityu, always subject to death. Yavat, as long as. Nishrayasaya, for ultimate liberation. Vishayaha, sense gratification. Kalu, always. Sarvataha, in all conditions. Syat, is possible. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. After many, many births and deaths, one achieves the rare human form of life, which, although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. Thus, a sober human being should quickly endeavor for the ultimate perfection of life, as long as his body, which is always subject to death, has not fallen down and died. After all, since gratification is available even in the most abominable species of life, whereas Krishna consciousness is possible only for a human being. Purport: material life essentially means repeated birth and death. Even the lowest forms of life, such as reptiles, insects, pigs, and dogs, have ample opportunity for sense gratification. Even ordinary houseflies have a busy sex life and thus multiply rapidly. Human life, however, enables one to understand the absolute truth and is therefore full of grave responsibility. Since the valuable human life is not eternal, we should do the needful to achieve the highest perfection, Krishna consciousness. Before death appears, we should seriously cultivate our real self-interest. One can experience Krishna consciousness in the association of devotees of the Lord. Without their association, one is in danger of being attracted to an impersonal conception of life, which causes one to fall away from devotional service to the absolute truth. Or, being discouraged by one's failure to understand the absolute truth, one may return to the false platform of sense gratification. In conclusion, human life is meant for cultivating Krishna consciousness under the guidance of the experienced, self-realized devotees of the Lord. Om Agyanitamirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamakyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutav Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tirubhyascha Kripasandubi Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivikasa Swaminita Namane Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminita Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Vagisha Yasya Vadane Lakshmi Yasya Chavaksasi Yasya Ste Hridaye Samvittam Nasimham Mahamajay. After many births and deaths, one achieves the rare human form of life, which, although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. Thus, a sober human being should quickly endeavor for the ultimate perfection of life, as long as his body, which is always subject to death, has not fallen down and died. After all, since gratification is available even in the most abominable species of life, whereas Krishna consciousness is possible only for a human being. So, thank you to everyone that has come to the monk retreat. I hope you've enjoyed your time here so far and learned a few things that you'll be able to take back home with you. It's a very special thing that you've gotten to come here and come across this place, because this is a very special place. It's a place where authentic spiritual life is practiced and proliferated and preached about. So, there's so much nonsense out there, and, everybody that was here found this online somewhere or the other. You found it on Google, you found it on YouTube, and Matsuji, you found it on YouTube, right? So, you're on these platforms and you're assaulted by a million different ideas of what spirituality is. So you happen to find this place, and as has been discussed this weekend, this is not a mental speculation. This is not something that we've made up. This is not something that Srila Prabhupada has made up. This is something that has been passed down from guru to disciple in an unbroken succession since Krishna himself. And so we know that this knowledge is bona fide, and we can verify that in our own experience when we go and check everything that's in these books with our own experience and see if it really applies. So again, thank you for coming, and we've really enjoyed having you guys here, and we hope it's been enjoyable for you as well. So this verse is a very important verse, and it's actually so important that Mahotsa Prabhu, the temple vice president, he's the acting president now, and he's our Sankirtan leader. This is the one verse that he has pasted on his, he has it on his closet in his room. It's the one verse that you can see basically anywhere in the ashram. I think that anybody, maybe Avadut has something on his wall, but it's very prominently placed there, and something that he sees every day, we see every day, especially as his roommate. I get to see it. And it's a very sobering verse. It brings you back to realize that death is inevitable at any moment, and this human form of life that we're experiencing is, as it's saying, very rare to achieve. So in this form, we have an opportunity that we don't have in any other form of life, which is, of course, spiritual realization, and what we're endeavoring for here at Krishna Life. So, we're in this cycle of birth and death, and as Prabhupada says at the very beginning of the purport, that the material life essentially means repeated birth and death. Now, this is something we're going through since time immemorial, and we can't trace back when it started, but we can be assured of one thing, that it is miserable. It's a guaranteed fact that nobody wants to die, but we all have to. And I'll get into this later, but the process of birth might seem, from an uninformed standpoint, it seems kind of okay. It's like you get a new body, you get to be young and be a kid and, have no worries in life. But it's described in the Bhagavatam what being in the womb is like, and how it's extremely painful, and it's not something that anybody would want to go through if they knew what it was like. Luckily, Krishna gives us forgetfulness, so as soon as we're out, we forget about all of that. But within the womb, we're suffering like anything, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But as I was saying, this human form is the best form for spiritual realization. And not only this human form, but there's also higher human forms where, you go to the heavenly planets and there's more enjoyment. There's more sense gratification. It's on a higher level. And in those situations, this endeavor for self-realization isn't so likely to take place because we don't experience as much misery. So it's said that the human form of life on this planet is the most ideal for spiritual realization because we have a nice mix of suffering and pleasure, to the ratio that it's not too much suffering that we're completely overwhelmed by it at all times. It's not too much pleasure that we're completely overwhelmed by that, like in the heavenly planets. So we're able to be sober and use our intelligence to discuss these things, and we can realize the misery of the material world because we're experiencing it firsthand, and we can also not have so much pleasure that we're completely overwhelmed by that and not able to focus on Krishna consciousness. So it's also saying in this purport, of course, that the insects, reptiles, pigs, dogs, they all have ample opportunity for this sense gratification that every human being is chasing after. You look at the society, it's completely crafted around sense gratification. How can we satisfy our tongue, our belly, and our genitals? And, these things are the summum bonum of society and why everybody engages in the activities they engage in. But you also see, we were on a walk today, we saw a dog. It was a stray dog or something walking up near us, and I saw it go and start eating somebody threw a to-go box out of their car or something. There was this nasty rotting food there. He ran up to it and started, eating it, enjoying it like anything. So, it's satisfying its tongue, and the dog goes and finds, a female dog and has sex with it. So there's nothing special about the sense gratification that we're experiencing, even though, we may be at the penthouse of a skyscraper enjoying nice food and sex and all these things. The dog's on the street. It's still enjoying the exact same kind of sense gratification, and we think that ours is so much better. Ultimately, it's actually not. And it was talked about in one of the previous classes this weekend that, monkeys and pigeons have way more capacity to enjoy sex life than humans, and they're shameless, so they just do it in the open. So this human form of life is actually not so suitable to get amazing sense gratification. Like I said, the heavenly planets, you can get better sense gratification. And even in certain forms of animals, you can get better sense gratification. So, it's said in the Shastra that this human form of life is meant for tapasya, austerity. We've been discussing this weekend as well. So what does that mean? It's very simple. It's that we take to this process of Krishna consciousness. We understand the difference between matter and spirit. We engage our intelligence that we have that is unique to the human form of life as compared to animal forms. And we endeavor for self-realization under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. It's saying here, of course, after all, sense gratification is available even in the most abominable species of life, whereas Krishna consciousness is possible only for a human being. So, moving on a little bit, as I've said, the human form is the best form for this spiritual realization. Another thing that we were talking about the other day is just reincarnation. And this is something that we put in that video. We said reincarnation is a fact. And we got so many comments showing hate and saying, no, it's not, prove it, all this. So that's one of the next videos that's in the works. We're going to go into depth more in that. But, just a couple of anecdotes or a couple of points on that, to kind of hammer home that, we are in this cycle of birth and death, and we can end up in the body of an animal or an insect or a bacteria. one point that I really like is we've already been through how many different bodies in this life alone. You know, we were originally in the form of a little baby, and then that body is completely gone now. Every cell in that body is completely gone, actually. Every mental idea we had at that point in time is gone. You know, they've actually proven with science that every 7 years, every cell within your body gets completely replaced. So even in, you know, adulthood, when we don't seem to change that much, we may age a little. Actually, all of our cells are constantly changing. So these bodies are already changing. So that's happening, but we're staying the same. We know that we're the same person. We're not changing into different people every day, every moment when our bodies are changing. So we've been through multiple different bodies within this life alone. So that's one very, you know, easy to understand example of reincarnation happening right before our eyes and nobody talks about. And another one is, of course, there's so many stories and anecdotes you can look online. We were looking at the other day, there's this young boy, he was 4 or 5 years old, and he knew the intricate workings of a airplane and different procedures and maneuvers and things like that that occur in a battle, and specifically that occurred in like a World War II style battle between like those like dogfights, I think they call them, like between two planes. Like he understood very intricate things that no like young child like that could understand. He knew what to do, and the pilots were asking him like, "What would you do in this situation and that?" And he knew exactly what was going on. He was an expert, you know, for all intents and purposes. So, you know, there's examples like that. I've heard of examples of kids that like remembered being a Buddhist monk or something like that, and they like were able to like point out the exact place where they used to like be a monk at this monastery, you know, halfway across the world. And so there's so many different examples of that. And the other point that, you know, I like to contemplate on is the fact that it's the only possible explanation for all of these different situations we're born into, like Chandra was saying last night, that, you know, I'm born in a man's body, someone else is born in a woman's body. You know, I'm born in with some like brown skin, you're born with white skin, you know, you're born with black skin. Like, so all these different situations we're born into, not to speak of being an animal form of life. What is the explanation for that? It must be reincarnation, because different actions that you perform lead to different accumulation of karma. And then based on that, you get a suitable birth based on your desires and what you deserve based on your karma. So it all adds up and makes complete sense logically. And then again, there's so much proof scientifically. So again, we'll be going into that more in the future, but just wanted to iterate on that and just emphasize on that, because this kind of plays into this idea of the human form being extremely valuable and rare. Now I want to talk about this. Can this be turned back on? I want to talk about this, the process of birth, and just go through that a little bit, because it's something before I came here I didn't think about, and it actually makes a lot of sense how it would be extremely painful and uncomfortable. Can you pull up, whoever's doing it, Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31, the index? $331. Got it? Okay. So I'm just going to read through these translations because it's just to save time. The personality of Godhead said, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and according to the result of his work, the living entity, the soul, is made to enter into the womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body. On the first night, the sperm and ovum mix, and on the fifth night, the mixture ferments into a bubble. On the 10th night, it develops into a form like a plum, and after that, it gradually turns into a lump of flesh or an egg, as the case may be. In the course of a month, a head is formed, and at the end of 2 months, the hands, feet, and other limbs take shape. By the end of the 3 months, the nails, fingers, toes, body hair, bones, and skin appear, as do the organ of generation and the other apertures in the body, namely the eyes, nostrils, ears, mouth, and anus. Within the 4 months from the date of conception, the 7 essential ingredients of the body, namely chyle, blood, flesh, fat, bone, marrow, and semen, come into existence. At the end of 5 months, hunger and thirst make themselves felt, and at the end of 6 months, the fetus, enclosed by the amnion, begins to move on the right side of the abdomen. Deriving its nutrition from the food and drink taken by the mother, the fetus grows and remains in that abominable residence of stools and urine, which is the breeding place of all kinds of worms. Bitten again and again all over the body by the hungry worms in the abdomen itself, the child suffers terrible agony because of his tenderness. He thus becomes unconscious moment after moment because of the terrible condition. Owing to the mother's eating bitter, pungent foodstuffs or food which is too salty or too sour, the body of the child incessantly suffers pains which are almost intolerable. Placed within the amnion and covered outside by the intestines, the child remains lying on one side of the abdomen, his head turned toward his belly and his back and neck arched like a bow. The child thus remains just like a bird in a cage, without freedom of movement. At that time, if the child is fortunate, he can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births, and he grieves wretchedly. What is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition? Okay, I'll stop there. This is just a, description of what it's like being in that womb. This is something I didn't think about before, but we talk about birth, death, old age, and disease being the 4 miseries of material life. And it's really true. You think about, being cramped in that womb. There's, it's completely dark. You're, bent in all kinds of directions. And, again, the mother is eating things that are really strong. And, the baby's body is so sensitive, and it's getting affected by these bitter, pungent foodstuffs. You're getting bitten by all these kinds of things. It's a horrible condition to be in. So, that's there. What else is there? There's disease. Everybody here has experienced some form of disease or another. And it's, the interesting thing about that is that when we're going through disease, when we're experiencing it, the one thing we want, the only thing in our consciousness is to be healthy again. And then when we're healthy, we take it for granted that we're healthy. We don't think about, oh, I'm glad I'm not sick right now. I'm really thankful. We just get back into a kind of normal attitude. But when we're sick and we have disease, it's really miserable, and we are just constantly meditating on not being sick. So that's a miserable condition to be in. What to speak of having a really bad disease, like cancer or something. Old age, of course, no one wants that. Nobody wants to get old. We get made fun of for being old here, but ultimately it's like your body gets more sore. Like even I'm only 30, but I'm already noticing, like, compared to 10 years ago, like, just I don't feel as healthy as I used to. Like my body feels more sore. Like, I got some trouble ahead of me, I guess. And then there's, of course, the ultimate death, something we all have to meet. Even if we live a very healthy life, we don't have much disease, or maybe we die young, we don't have to experience old age. We still have to go through death ultimately. And one thing I've noticed when I maybe talk to people in the street or just doing preaching work in general is we talk about that. We say, you have to die. What about that? And so many people claim that they're not afraid of it, that they're not worried about it at all. They've accepted it. They're cool with it. Like it is what it is. I'm going to live a good life, and then I'm not afraid of death. But one thing I was thinking about in regards to this is, if you're wherever you are, and someone comes up with a gun and starts shooting people, and you're not afraid of death, what are you going to, you should just stand there. Like, you're not afraid of it, right? Why are you going to freak out and run away, right? You're going to be really scared. Anybody in that situation that's sane would have basically a panic attack or just freak out, run away. Hit the ground or whatever, duck for cover. So we say we're not afraid of death, but then when the situation comes where death is right in front of us, we're not going to be so calm in that situation. And it's speaking about in this verse, of course, the urgency of the human form, that this death can come at any moment. Nothing is guaranteed. What does it say exactly? one should quickly endeavor for the ultimate perfection of life, as long as this body, which is always subject to death, has not fallen down and died. So we're always subject to death. We could get into a car and drive down the road, drive down 85. It's a pretty dangerous road, and get into an accident and die. We could get struck by lightning. We don't know anything could happen at any moment. We could suddenly come down with some disease and pass away shortly. I was hearing about that. One of your friends just like suddenly died. He's a young guy. Happens all the time. So we don't know how much time we have, but we do know that this human form is extremely valuable. So we should use the time we do have for this endeavor for self-realization. It's said in the Bhagavad Gita, this very famous verse, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vidi tatvada tyakta deham punarjama nati mameti sorjuna, that the one who knows the transcendental nature of my birth and activities does not, at the time of death, return to the material world, but you attain Krishna's eternal abode. So by just knowing the form, pastimes, name, fame, activities of the Lord, and the nature of his appearance and activities in this world, you don't have to go through this cycle anymore. So this is the answer to this predicament that we're in, that we have this rare human form of life. Okay, well, what to do with it? We learn about Krishna. We learn about devotional service. We absorb our minds in Krishna consciousness instead of material consciousness, and at the time of death, we attain that transcendental spiritual world that we've been meditating upon. Whatever we're meditating upon at the time of death, that's what we attain. There's also another verse that confirms this. You can pull it up. 2:16. So, etavan sankhya yoga bhyam svadharma parinishtaya janmalabha parafpum sham ante narayana smritihi. The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. And the purport, Narayana is the transcendental personality of Godhead beyond the material creation. Everything that is created, sustained, and at the end annihilated is within the compass of the Mahatattva, material principle, and is known as the material world. The existence of Narayana, or the personality of Godhead, is not within the jurisdiction of this Mahatattva, and as such the name, form, attributes, etc. of Narayana are beyond the jurisdiction of the material world. By the speculation of empiric philosophy, which discerns matter from spirit, or by cultivation of mystic powers, which ultimately helps the performer to reach any planet of the universe or beyond the universe, or by discharge of religious duties, one can achieve the highest perfection, provided one is able to reach the stage of Narayana Smriti, or a constant remembrance of the personality of Godhead. This is possible only by the association of a pure devotee, who can give a finishing touch to the transcendental activities of all jnanis, yogis, or karmis. In terms of prescribed duties defined in the scriptures, there are many historical instances of the achievement of spiritual perfection, such as that of Sanakadi rishis, or the 9 celebrated yogindras, who had attained the perfection only after being situated in the devotional service of the Lord. None of the devotees of the Lord ever deviated from the path of devotional service by taking to other methods as adopted by the jnanis or yogis. Everyone is anxious to achieve the highest perfection of his particular activity, and it is indicated herein that such perfection is Narayana Smriti, for which everyone must endeavor his best. In other words, life should be molded in such a manner that one is able to progressively remember the personality of Godhead in every step of life. So we should be able to progressively remember the personality of Godhead at every step of life. Continually more and more absorbing our minds, our consciousness, and all of our activities in consciousness of Krishna and serving Krishna, and rekindling this relationship with Krishna it's our birthright. This is our original position. Just like a fish in water is perfectly content. You take that fish out of water, and you give it all kinds of sense gratification, everything, beautiful women, drugs, very nice food to eat, it's never going to be satisfied until you just throw it back in the water. We're in a similar situation. This material world is like being a fish out of water. And by coming into Krishna consciousness, coming into the association of devotees, taking up this process of hearing, chanting, feasting, participating in the Yuga Dharma, Sankirtan Yagya, associating with the devotees, constantly thinking of Krishna, and following the regulative principles, we can reignite that process and find our way back to that water that we're always yearning for. The entire point of this human life is to, again, engage in tapasya and attain a higher taste. So this is another important verse in the Bhagavad Gita, 259, that we're always, the point of devotional service and what we're doing here is to attain a higher taste, and we're going to lose our taste for all of these lower things that we've been engaged in, eating meat, and engaged in illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, and other just not as grossly sinful activities, but just wasting time, watching Netflix, going out to, dinner with your friends or whatever, things that are just not focused on Krishna. We lose the taste for that and we gain a taste for Krishna consciousness. Vishaya vinivartante niharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So the summary of this verse is that you can restrict yourself from all these things, and again, this was also discussed, I think, last night, that it's not that we're sitting here thinking, no, I'm not going to do these but sinful things. I'm not going to do it. We're engaged in things that give us a higher taste. We've given up these other things, but we've replaced them with activities. We no longer eat abominable foodstuffs, but we eat very nice prasadam offered to Krishna. Our tongue is very satisfied. We no longer listen to mundane sound vibrations and music and of people that are in a lower consciousness. We listen to and sing kirtan and glorify the Lord. So all of these senses are still getting gratification, but it's on a higher level. We attain that higher taste. Another point that I wanted to make is that people in general, just like they're, say they're not afraid of death, but ultimately they are, and you can test it pretty easily. They also claim to be very happy in life, but it's pretty easily seen through. Ultimately you just poke at them a little bit, and you realize that it's like a bubble. You just pop a bubble, and it's everything that they're claiming to be so happy about is either it's a temporary thing that they're going to lose at some point, and they're an illusion about it, or that's pretty much sums up everything. They're happy because they're pursuing the career that they've wanted. Okay, well, for example, AI is going to take a lot of all these careers away, so now what? They're happy because they got in a great relationship. Well, that's a temporary relationship that you have, unfortunately. I'm sorry to tell you that, but there's anything that they say, if they're on the material platform, you can pretty easily break down and show them that it's temporary, it's going to lead to misery ultimately because you're attached to it. But they'll continue going on and kind of close their eyes and their ears when you say these kinds of things to them, and convince themselves that they're actually still happy. People are very eager to remain in ignorance and be blissfully unaware of this reality. But now that you've been here and you've experienced this Krishna consciousness for a weekend, it's something that's going to stick with you throughout life. You're not going to be able to forget it, whether you like it or not, unfortunately. So, you're going to go home and, you might immediately think, okay, well, that was really amazing, and, you might see a stark difference pretty immediately, right? Like, okay, my material life, okay, they're right about this thing, being miserable, that thing, okay, like, and you might keep chanting and feel good, but what happens, and can happen a lot, unfortunately, is that when someone gets the association of devotees and then leaves it, they slip back into their old ways. And you might find yourself engaging in some activities that you said you wanted to give up. You might find yourself just forgetting about Krishna consciousness for some time. But ultimately, you are going to always in the back of your head remember what you experienced here and yearn for that in some way or another. The good news in that way is that there's no loss or diminution on this path. So what you've gained in your spiritual journey in this weekend will stay with you, not only through this life, but through all your future lives. So this is the only real progress we can make in the human form of life. And any form of life in the material world is spiritual progress. This is the only thing that stays with us. Even, the richest man is going to lose everything at the time of death. Elon Musk and the crackhead on the street, death takes them equally. It doesn't have any discrimination. And it takes away everything. So, Elon Musk loses everything he has, and the homeless man loses everything he has. But ultimately, any material accolades or things we accumulate are going to be taken away. But this spiritual taste that we're achieving, that we're attaining, we're cultivating, this, turning towards Krishna and turning away from Maya, even if it's only for a few days, this will stay with us and go into our spiritual bank account and remain with us. So next life, you get to start where you left off. So the ultimate goal is to realize that I have to do this at some point anyways. I have to attain perfection. I have to completely become Krishna conscious at some point, whether it's now or a million births from now. It has to be done. And so if you've ever had something like you have to go to the DMV or like something you really don't want to do, but you have to do it at some point. Generally, it's just better to just do it. Like you have a Band-Aid, you don't want to take it off. It's better to just rip it off. Get it done with, get it over with. And that's why, we are so gung-ho about living within, the association of devotees. Even if you can't live in the temple, at least be able to come visit as often as possible. Center your life around Krishna consciousness and don't make it just some tourist attraction that you came and experienced. Make it, realize the urgency of this human form of life. Realize the unique opportunity that you have, that you're in this age of Kali where you just have to chant, you just have to hear the mantra. You just have to associate with devotees, take prasadam, chant, dance, feast, be happy. It's a very simple process, and it's a very unique opportunity we have. This country has 330 million people, and there's 30 people in this room. So I don't know what the percentage of that is, but it's like 0.0000001% chance that you've gotten here. So it's extremely rare that you're even born as a human, and then it's extremely rare that you've found the association of devotees. So take it seriously, take it up, with sincerity. Chant every day, try to chant every single day. Wake up as early as you can. If you can't do 4, do 5. If you can't do 5, do 5:30. Read these books every day. Take these books home, read them, really study them, give the respect to them and set some time aside every day, even if it's 20 minutes, all you can do. Sit there and read the books. Try to really, endeavor for Krishna consciousness in this life. Continue associating with the devotees. We have this live stream we do every morning for our morning program. So you can tune in, participate in the morning program with us, chant your rounds with us. It's definitely, there's been a couple of people like Ethan does it, and there's a couple other guys that do it, and they've said it helps them a lot. So, it's a good substitute when you don't have in-person association. So yeah, we're imploring you to please take up this process, take it seriously. Continue associating with the devotees and, don't become a stranger. Keep in touch with us. We're always happy to have a call or just, talk whenever you want. And you can come back and visit anytime you like, no problem. And yeah, again, thank you so much for coming this weekend, and we hope you really got something out of it. And I'll take any questions or comments now.
James? Yeah, thank you so much. Hope to express my gratitude more. But yeah, for the time being, I do have to return to the normal world. And so I do have a couple questions.
Yeah.
If, married person, follower of Krishna, is it recommended to have children, or is that
Yeah.
It
So
is.
it's part of the dharma, which means the duty, basically, of being in married life is to raise children. And if you don't do that, it's considered sinful, because the point of marriage is to create children and raise them in Krishna consciousness is the idea.
Okay.
So you're giving a living entity the opportunity to take up Krishna consciousness from birth. So they're giving a very good opportunity. We have Janardhan Krishna Prabhu. Yeah. Yeah. He was raised in a devotee family, and so, they followed very strictly. And we see now him, his younger brother, his younger sister, they're all taking, or I think his older sister, they're all taking it up seriously. They're all chanting 16 rounds. They're all following the principles. They're not eating karmi grains. So their parents have given them this great opportunity to perfect their lives. And the other benefit is that if your children become perfected and attain liberation, and you don't, they also liberate you.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so you get an extra chance, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And I have another question.
Yeah.
That's how detrimental is it to release one's semen without procreating? Like how bad is how sinful is that?
It's very bad. Yeah. It's very bad. Chandan.
Every drop of semen requires 80 drops of blood or something. So
Yeah, that's there. Yeah.
it's it takes a lot of blood to release a little bit of semen, and it takes away a lot of energy that we require to practice spiritual life. We need a lot of mental capacity to understand spiritual subjects. So that's why brahmacharya is recommended.
It's also not only that, it's that, right, like the living entity takes shelter within the semen of a father, right? So then if it's lost, then
Yeah,
that
there's-
you're
There's
ruining
mul-
that living entity's chance.
There's multiple
So,
reasons, but specifically
born.
for the specifically for the man, the semen is very powerful. Like he was saying that the body needs so much energy to produce blood, and blood is so essential to the body. But the semen, it has the ability to give life, like a whole new life, and it takes, like you were saying, 80 drops of blood to produce 1 drop of semen. So if that is wasted, then that's in Vedic culture, in the tradition of Vedic culture, that's just wasting life. So that's wasting life there. So now the society encourages that very much, and the more it does that, the more it dulls people down. Because if you just let your semen go, it makes you dull like an animal. Because actually that life gives you intelligence, not wasting that. So actually yogis, they would not waste it, preserve it, and it says that it would flow the other way. And it nourishes the finer tissues of the brain. Therefore you see great personalities who are actually great personalities of this world, even mundane personalities, they were celibate. And due to that celibacy, they could acquire great levels of intelligence and strength in the body. If you don't lose semen, actually you'll never get diseased in your body. Your body will stay strong. This is called prana, life. So if you preserve semen, you can actually even overcome disease by this. So one of the reasons that the society is so messed up nowadays is because of this pornography. Because it pushes young men to just let go of their semen. Therefore, the men are becoming more like women. Because they're not, the man's energy is there, but it's being wasted. And so then it's easier to exploit them, because that virya, which is the strength of the man, is no longer there. So that has to be maintained. And that's very important for spiritual life, because it gives one the intelligence to be able to be very sharp in his thinking. It allows one to discriminate, not be pulled by desire. One learns to control desire.
I have heard in Taoism, at least in like Chinese philosophy and Taoism, that it's a little less. It's not as bad if you're in a relationship with a woman and sharing they call it chi, but it's not. It's still just a loss of prana, regardless in either situation. Okay, thank you.
I mean, anyways, if you're sharing it with a woman, she can't really use it. Like, how is she going to get energy from that? Unless you're creating life with it, that's the point of it. It's the purpose of it.
Yeah.
It's back to this idea of like an iPhone using it as a hammer. It like doesn't make any sense. Like, you should use the thing that's meant for its purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Important point is that the way that is actually shared is that the woman conceives a child,
Yeah.
right? So that's the exchange of energy that is going on.
Yeah.
But it is also, I've heard also that if the man is having sex with the woman gets more energy and the man loses energy. Actually,
Really?
there is an exchange. So I've heard like that also, that the woman becomes more powerful, like that, and so it's important. So therefore, within marriage, also sex is had for procreation.
Anything else? Mataji?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Is this on? Okay. I had a couple questions. So you had mentioned, working over lifetimes to achieve a human body. How come humans are so ignorant, especially here in the West? We didn't have any of these philosophies. Why is that?
Well, depending on what activities you're engaged in, depends on the kind of consciousness you're going to cultivate. So, these 4 pillars of sinful life that we talk about, illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, intoxication, these things dull us, like he was saying, they dull us into becoming like an animal. Our consciousness becomes, dulled and lowered down. So when we refrain from these activities, we're able to come to the human, the platform of a human, right? So, you see practically, look around, you see almost everybody's engaged in at least some of these activities, if not all of them. Meat eating, so prevalent, illicit sex, so prevalent. Gambling, maybe not everybody does that. Intoxication, almost everybody does in some form. So as long as we're engaged in these activities, we're not going to be able to develop the intelligence that we're capable of developing as a human. Yeah, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
And then I was curious, there seem to be a large number of persons that, say they've had a near-death experience and that they see a white light at the end of a tunnel and they see God. What is that about? Why are so many people saying that?
It's like,
Yeah, like that. There's the effulgence,
Yeah.
that is, there's some sort of bright light, and we see maybe some sort of phenomenon. I don't know. How do you have anything? Bright lights. People see bright light at the end of their death.
Yeah, what do you want me to say about it? A lot of people do say that.
Yeah.
is there anything in Shastra about it?
No, but they may not be like exactly there, like in Shastra, like things like that, but it may just be like a common phenomenon, like in society at the time or something.
Hmm.
So, but
There are some instances of people saying that they saw like scary devils taking them away, like dragging them away, like Ajamil saw
Yeah.
Yamadutas.
she's speaking about like this is more common. It's like this light.
Of light.
But there is that too, you know, people are seeing something and they're, you know, they all have these different depictions of their God that they see, and, you know, that's just something that I've been curious about.
The consciousness is being absorbed in that their whole life, so they may see that at the time of death. Just like somebody who's absorbed in sex thinks about sex at the time of death. So one who is absorbed in that particular type of consciousness may be absorbed in that at the time of death. Krishna speaks about that in the Bhagavad Gita. So that's why it's important. Krishna speaks about that we cultivate Krishna consciousness. So at the time of death, we don't just think about some bright light, or just that bright light comes in our consciousness, but it's actually Krishna that comes in our consciousness. That's one thing that might be there also.
That makes sense. And then I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for this experience. I did my 16 rounds today, and it was an amazing feeling.
Jai.
It was a wonderful, very euphoric feeling. I've been getting all sorts of epiphanies without the use of LSD. Since I've been here. I do have a boyfriend at home. Up until this point, our spiritual journey has been pretty interlinked. I mean, we've grown past, well beyond having sex. We don't drink alcohol anymore. We don't smoke cigarettes. You know, so, you know, we've really progressed together. So I definitely want to get him out here with you guys as well. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. Yeah, send him along. We'll love to have him. So, Jai. All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Panchakalpatrikascha Kripsandhi Vivcha.